This is my God knows how many times I've done this shot. When I first started filming, this cup was full and now it's not. And the rest is cold. That was disgusting. I've never filmed a video where I just sit and talk to the camera because I'm really awkward. And I start swaying on my chair like this and touching my face and moving my hair and doing stutters and waving my arms about like a broken penguin. But I'm gonna try and make a talking video anyway because me, the broken penguin, I want to. So today I'm going to be reading poems from 5 poetry books that I have out of, I have about 12 now I think, which is why I don't have any money. I don't have a job either. That doesn't help. I'm listening to music that you can't hear, otherwise I'll get copyrighted, but if I don't have it on then I'm gonna be even more awkward than I already am because I'm a mess. Which is why sometimes I'm dancing and to you it's to nothing or whatever I put over this video. So people ask me a lot why I like poetry after they've suffered 5 years of high school reading war poems and poems that are 12 pages long and boring with old language. I'm not saying that all poems of old language are bad, but I mean I haven't found one that's good so far. But I like poetry because it's a way to express yourself. I write poetry. I might read some of that someday, but for now I'm just going to read other people's. But it's a way, if you feel really sad or anxious and depressed and you can't talk to people about it, you can write down how you feel in the form of poetry. So it sounds arty and cool as well as depressing because it's depressing thought. But reading other people's experiences through poetry books shows that you're not the only one that's struggling and that you're not alone with what you're going through. So, I'm going to be reading poems from 5 different poetry books whilst waving my arms around and swaying on my chair and being awkward. The first book I'm going to read from is Love Her Wild by Atticus, and it's actually the first poetry book that I got, and it was $12.99, which is expensive to me because I don't have a job. So I was hesitant to buy it because $12.99, but it's hardback and it's pretty and it's got nice little photos in it. It'd be nice if I could find an example like this, and then they put a poem in front of it. Some of them are just pages of photographs, I believe. Haven't read this in a while. Atticus's poems range, I think actually they're mainly romance. As I said, I haven't read this in a while. I probably should have reread this before I started filming a video with it in. Oops. Love could be labelled poison, and we drink it anyways. This poem shows how people are so desperate for love that even if it's a negative relationship, they'll take it anyway because they've read about love in books and seen it in films, and it's just all I ever hear people talking about is how they can't get in relationships, and it's just something that people chase after, although it's fine to be on your own. New love is the best cure for old love gone bad. I think that this poem shows that you shouldn't be afraid to get into a new relationship after being in a previous relationship that went wrong. You shouldn't fear getting into other relationships. Not much else I'm going to say about that because I've gotten awkward and need to pause. Anyway, I really recommend this book if you haven't read much poetry before and if you're willing to spend $12.99 on it. But it's really worth it and the quality of it is really good, like physically and the content. The next book I am going to talk about is, I got it pretty recently. It's called In the Absence of the Sun, and it's a really short read. I've tabbed quite a few poems, as you can see, so I quite like it. It's not like the best poetry book I've read, but I'm yet to come across that. I just found my tabs. I don't recommend getting them. They're from the works, but they don't stick very good, and they keep falling out of my books. This book talks about negative things like mental illnesses and not feeling so great about yourself, but it also talks about love, and it has a few love poems in it, which is why I said it has love in it. When we were younger, we fought with our fists, but now we have discovered deadlier weapons. Words. This poem shows that it's not just physical violence that can get you really hurt, but it's also words and arguments, because words are just as painful as punches. Falling for You is like rereading my favourite book. This next book, it's like Marmite, you either love it or hate it, and a lot of people don't like it because the style of the poems and what it talks about. It's Milk and Honey by Rupi Kaur. You get the point? But I think her books, they were quite mainstream and popular at some point, even for people that don't like poetry or read, because some of the poems are kind of like quotes, I guess. But I think that her work is about survival, so it's like personal experiences. I feel like you can't really judge a poet by what they write because it's what they feel. This book does have a lot of explicit content, so if you were a younger person, I wouldn't really recommend reading it because it's not suitable. But it talks about, it has like a feminist vibe with it, but it's not feminazi. Like, before I found this kind of poetry along with Amanda Lovelace's work, I didn't really understand feminists, I guess. I mean, you know, I heard the jokes and things, and I didn't consider why people were feminists. It's more their personal experiences of why they're oh my god. My mum phoned me and it cut the video off. That's why oops. Anyway, as I was saying, I didn't consider why people were feminists, like people's own personal experiences with things being said to them and just bad experiences with stuff to do with because of their gender. So I didn't realise this until I found these works of poetry. The poem I'm about to read is one of my favourites, and again it's on my wall over there. Not that you can see it, but it's on my wall. The next time he points out the hair on your legs is growing back, remind that boy your body is not his home. He's a guest. Warn him to never outstep his welcome again. One of the reasons I like that poem so much is because as a female you're expected to shave everything, and if you do leave the house and you have hair on your legs, then sometimes people will judge you for it, and I myself get really paranoid when I haven't shaved my legs, that someone's going to point it out or make fun of me or judge me. And this causes my anxiety to just explode, because I'm so scared of being judged for a reason I don't even know myself. I'm also talking quieter now because my family are home, and I hate filming when they're home because I feel really awkward, and I'm already really awkward with myself, never mind other people being here and hearing me talk. It's such fun. Which is why I've also switched tea out for cider. And because I can't be bothered to reboil the kettle and it takes a long time, and I'm not that kind of person. Apparently, it is ungraceful of me to mention my period in public because the actual biology of my body is too real. It is okay to say what's between a woman's legs more than it is okay to mention its inner workings. The recreational use of this body is seen as beautiful, while its nature is seen as ugly. Again, I relate to this poem because if I talk about my period in public, then people are like, oh, that's disgusting, you shouldn't talk about that. But yet, people are always talking about sex and stuff like that, and it's seen as fine, and it just doesn't make sense to me why to talk about a woman's parts in that way is fine, but talking about biology is looked down on. This book costs about $9.99, and I bought a copy for my niece the other day for £2. But it's fine, because I promised her that I'd buy her it, and I'd rather spend £2 on it than £9.99 again. But look in WH Smith's for their clearance section, because you might find £2 copies of poetry books that cost a lot in there. The next book I'm going to talk about is also by Rupi. I'm not going to try and say her last name again, it won't end well. And this is The Sun and Her Flowers. It's by far my most tabbed book, and I just really liked this collection. And my boyfriend got me it for my birthday, but it is £12.99. That is back to front, so you can't really see it, but it was £12.99. And I felt bad, but happy because it's poetry and I like poetry. Again, this book has a strong feminist feel in it, but it's not necessarily a bad thing. The way you speak of yourself, the way you degrade yourself into smallness is abuse, self-harm. I feel like everyone I've ever met has degraded themselves at some point in their life. They've put themselves down by what they say about themselves, and that is like considered self-harm. I don't know why I just sprayed that, but it is considered self-harm if you think about it, because you are putting yourself down and making yourself feel miserable, which is just as painful as hurting yourself physically. Borders are man-made. They only divide us physically. Don't let them make us turn on each other. This poem shows how on the news we see these stories about immigrants and how they're terrorists and how we shouldn't let them into our country, but they're still people, and it's like the country is trying to turn us against those people that are trying to get in because they're not safe in the situation that they're already in. We shouldn't judge everyone just from what we hear in the news and on the TV. How much or how little clothing she has on has nothing to do with how free she is, covered, uncovered. Again, this poem is a case of people judging you. I thought someone was coming up the stairs, sorry. But it's a case of people judging people for the way they dress, which I think everyone is guilty of. I've done it, and I wish I didn't, but I guess it's human nature to judge people, as sad as that is. This poem has a complete different tone to the last 2 or 3 I just read. You must have a honeycomb for a heart. How else could a man be this sweet? And it's got a picture of some honeycomb. I like this poem because I like honeycomb, but also it's just a happy poem, isn't it? It's just nice. The last book I'm going to talk about is Pillow Thoughts by Courtney Peppernell, I think. And it's a very tabbed book of mine again. I liked this collection. It cost me $11.99 from Waterstones. I get most of my books on Amazon because it's sometimes cheaper, but sometimes it's not because postage and packaging. There are days where triggers are around every corner, lurking in shadows where darkness spills, heavy breaths and tight chests. Anxiety is a devastating thing. No matter how many times you are told to breathe, it feels as though the air has all been thinned, and despite every logical reason to remain calm, you feel like a ship without its sails in the middle of a raging storm. Again, a very relatable poem, because with anxiety there are days where I feel fine, I'm so confident I don't even have anxiety like it feels. But there are other days where I can't even order food, I can't talk to anyone, and I hide from everyone. It's unpredictable. So that's all the books I'm going to be reading, poems I'm going to be reading. I'll probably make another video of this, even though it was very awkward and I wasn't even looking into the camera most times, because I was looking at myself like this, because it's better than looking in there and thinking about people who will be watching this and probably judging me. Yay! But yeah, I have a lot more poetry books I can read from. I'll definitely read from Amanda Lovelace next time, as she's definitely my favourite poet, I think. But I'm not going to tell you to subscribe or like or comment. It's your life, you do what you want.